Hello, everyone. Welcome and happy Friday or Thursday. We're not there yet. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Jenny. I'm one of the co-owners of Mysterious Galaxy, and I am here to introduce these lovely ladies and give a very, very brief, like 1 cent tour of the Crowdcast platform if you haven't used it before. And then I will make my way out and leave it to our lovely guests for discussion. So the key things for you to know, as you know, our viewers, on the right hand side you can see the chat section. Please share any excitement, joy, praise, fun facts for our authors there. That is where most of the conversation will happen. Below us, directly below in the middle of the videos, you will see a green button where if you have not yet gotten your own copy of The Bone Orchard, you can do so through Mysterious Galaxy and get a signed book plate, which is pretty cool. So go there for this. Below that, you will see the Ask a Question button. That's a very important question, or a very important button for asking questions of our guests. So if you come up with any questions throughout the event, please drop them there. Later in the event, our authors will be answering those questions. And if you go and you pull up those questions and you see somebody already asked the question you wanted to ask, just go ahead and upvote it. It'll push it to the top of the list because we want to make sure we answer what you care about most. So without further ado, I will introduce our lovely guests tonight. Our guest of honor first is Sara Mueller. And Sara writes speculative fiction in the green and rainy Pacific Northwest, where she lives with her family, numerous rescue books, and a forest of fountain pens. In a nomadic youth, she trod the earth of every state but Alaska and lived in 6 of them. She's an amateur historical costumer, gamer, and cook. And she's spoken on panels at multiple Pacific Northwest cons on costume, clothing, horses, invisible, disability, horses, world building, and aspects of literature and writing. The Bone Orchard is her debut novel from Tor that came out Tuesday. So our lovely in conversation partner tonight is Marina J. Lostetter. My stutter comes out a lot.
Sorry.
But Marina is the author of NOUMENON and NOUMENON Infinity. The Helm of Midnight was her first foray into fantasy. Originally from Oregon, she now resides in Arkansas with her husband, Alex. When not writing or drawing, she can often be found reading spec-fic or playing it. She enjoys a good zombie-themed board game now and again. And she does it all while globetrotting. So without further ado, I will make my exit and leave you both to discuss The Bone Orchard. Congratulations on the release. And I will see you at the end of the event.
Thank you.
Yay, Sara!
Hi. So I think the idea was I was going to do a reading first.
Yes. Do you want to give us a little brief overview, like what is the book about type intro, and then dive in?
Yeah. So here, I can hold it up too. There's copies everywhere. It's a dark fantasy. It is gothic. It deals with trauma and trauma recovery and the passing of the reins of power from a unnaturally lengthened dynasty to what happens when that dynasty starts to fail. And it has lots of political intrigue and a woman who has, done unfortunate things to her own mind to survive her life, which has been a little terrible. And obviously, as it says on the book cover, she has to solve the murder of the emperor who has had her as a captive for many, many, many years.
Yeah. Do we do a little intro to the part you'll be reading for us?
Sure. So this is set shortly after the emperor has died. He has been murdered, and he's pretty sure that one of his sons has murdered him. This would not come as a shock to literally anyone who knew them.
His 4 sons are not okay.
His 4 sons are not okay. Charm's line is that they are stone bastards, every single one. She may be biased. It is true. So this is the first evening after the announcement of the emperor's death and the election of the new emperor. And 2 of the princes have come to call upon her at her bordello. Basically, it's a gentleman's club, as they say.
Yes.
And in addition to offering cards and drinking and political conversation, there are also services upstairs for the discriminating, provided by Charm's what she calls bone ghosts, who are artificially grown women who serve as the primary workers in this bordello. So, Mistress Charm, you've cost me 400 imperial marks, announced Prince Phelan as she came into the red parlor. He sat in an armchair before the fire, a snifter of brandy in his hand. Justice sat at his feet, and Prince Phelan stroked her head as if she were a favored dog. Across from him, Prince Luther was dour and long-faced. Luther had come to Inshill as an ambassador before the so-called rebellion and had been recalled in disgrace. Neither Charm nor any of her bone ghosts had seen him since the day he'd left Inshill. He hadn't been in Boren for more than a day or 2 at a time, and his brothers said with scorn that his admiralship was exile. On the rare occasion he docked in Boren, Luther hadn't called at Orchard House. He had never been there before tonight. His hair was still the color of wet sand, as untouched by silver as Phelan's leonine mane. The emperor had provided even exiled Luther with rejuve. What was he doing at Orchard House? Would he have killed his father just to come back to Beauregard? How have I cost you money, Prince Phelan? Charm asked, returning Phelan's smile as if he'd never done a wrong thing in his life. You're still in black, mistress, Phelan chided her jovially. I am? Charm looked down at her skirts, gasped, and opened her eyes very wide in mock surprise. Why, so I am. I bet Luther 400 imperial marks that you'd have left off mourning when the old lecher died. Charm looked down at her own ample displayed cleavage. I hardly think this would be appropriate for a funeral, Prince Phelan, she teased. Besides, I hadn't anything else that went with lavender hair. Phelan laughed and stood. Get yourself a room, Luther. Spend your winnings and live a little now that you can. Mistress, send me supper and some hot chocolate. Come on, girl. Phelan gave Justice his hand, and she limped out on his arm. One crisis at a time, and of all of us, Justice can handle him. He almost never rages twice in a month. The almost was honesty that honesty compelled her to admit didn't soothe her worries. Charm turned to the other prince. Is there anything Orchard House can supply for you, Prince Luther? Luther's only companion, now, were a side table, a pot of tea. Luther's narrow face was impassive, but his lips tightened as he looked at her. Only a little more tea. Thank you, mistress. Tea wouldn't teach them enough about Luther. Who had he become since Inshill? Was his restraint real or feigned for some benefit? Of course, Prince Luther. Though if there's anything else, it's on the house this evening, offered Charm. Perhaps a bath or a massage? How respectable are you determined to be? For a long moment, Luther was quiet. There was a bone ghost who brought the tea cart, he said finally. The one with the crippled hands. Charm didn't let her face show any emotion, but her heart raced. Virtually no one chose Desire before they'd learned her name. Her hands put off most customers. Worse, Desire could easily ruin Charm's plans to get information from the princes, and she might tell Luther far too much. That particular bone ghost is not my most talented creation, Prince Luther. Perhaps you'd prefer pride, or possibly shame. I am not interested in talent. I am interested in the young lady who brought the tea. And Charm could not refuse without raising suspicions. Even if Desire had a later appointment, she would be expected to cancel it for a prince. I'll send Desire to the second floor, second door on the left. Please be so good as to take the green tassel off the doorknob as you go in. I've noticed a curious trend in your bone ghosts, Mistress Charm. Desire cannot hold on to anything. Pain is pale and pride is blind. It cannot be a coincidence, surely. Prince Luther's dark eyes mirrored the depths of a grave. It is a coincidence, you ask. That's not how those things work. She'd buried enough of the lady's failed experiments, after all. The one with the heart fully outside its body. The one whose skin never developed, so it rotted in the tank. The one that had animated, but only drooled and died in spite of everything Charm could think of to try to help, and that turned out to only have a brain stem and no real brain. Damn Luther to hell. He was cold enough to plan patricide, calm enough to carry it off, and he would certainly not have dirtied his own hands. Why would he kill his father without assuring himself the throne? Or perhaps he thought it was assured and that brat Strephon was another victim in the waiting? Or might he, after years away, simply have underestimated Count Sebro? Human bone ghosts are all flawed, Your Highness. The process for them is not as perfect as for simpler animals. If you'd like to go up, I'll send Desire to you. She curtsied and went out. Desire was in the kitchen preparing a supper tray and hot chocolate to go upstairs. Phelan always ordered hot chocolate, and Mrs. Westmore, the cook, went home at midnight. Let that chocolate cool a bit before you take it up, please, requested Charm. Justice is still in the tank. Is just out of the tank from the last time. Prince Phelan is particular about his food and drink, said Desire. It upset everyone to have to treat justice for scalded privates. Prince Phelan will have to live with merely warm chocolate, Charm replied. Desire put the silver chocolate pot on a cart in the dumbwaiter. Prince Luther asked for you. Desire stuttered back a step, her twisted hands going to her mouth to cover her delighted surprise. Charm positively itched to throttle Luther. Don't look so pleased. For all we know, he's the one who murdered his father. He mustn't know who you are. Say nothing to him, do you understand? He's the one that needs to do the talking. Desire pleaded, Charm, I won't let you endanger us. We can be free, Desire. This is the only thing left I have to do, just this one thing. And it isn't as if any of them deserve better than what's coming to them. Say nothing, snapped Charm. He must have been good at bed sports, so at least it'll be pleasant. Swear you won't tell him a thing, or so help me, I'll see you in a vat tonight instead of in your lover's bed. Desire's mouth trembled, and her eyes went glassy with tears. I swear, she managed hoarsely. Ever pathetic, thought Charm, biting back the urge to snarl aloud in frustration. With shame and desire in the house, the customers who enjoyed pushing meek women around would always go home happy. At the same time, she berated herself. They couldn't help it. It was what they were meant to be. Sweet, compliant, broken. They shielded the lady. I swear I won't tell him anything, Desire whispered. Charm refused to meet Desire's eyes. She tested the side of the chocolate pot. You can take this up now. Luther's in the second on the left. Mind you use your mouth for things besides talking. Desire washed her face quickly, pushed the tea cart into the dumbwaiter, and went up the back stairs, all but glowing. Charm choked against a sob, leaned her elbows on the table, and pressed her forehead against the heels of her hands. It was petty to be jealous, but she was. The lack of her emperor at the center of Boren was a gaping hole in her orderly life, jailer though he had been. She wanted him to talk to, and she hated it. He'd been her captor, but also her steadiest company for so long. And now he'd put freedom just tantalizingly out of reach. So close she could scrabble at the edges of it, and he had known she would, until her fingers bled. How could she possibly bring down the princes of Boren for his murder? If Charm pulled Strephon from the throne, there were 3 more princes waiting to take his place. How could she kill 4 of them? How could she kill even 1 prince and survive it?
So much intrigue.
Yeah, they're a charming lot.
Oh,
are the
yes.
princes.
No, everybody is just so great and obviously so pure and innocent and full of good intentions in this book.
Yeah, it's a book full of pure intentions and faultlessly kind, nice people.
Totally. Clearly. It's just rainbows and sunshine all the way through. Oh, it is very
British summer.
Yeah. It gets very dark in parts, and for good reason. And I want to talk a little bit more about the bone ghosts because they are part of the magical element in the book. And obviously many of the characters are bone ghosts themselves. And they also do a great job. You have a lot of characters that have either a duplicity about them or a multiplicity about them from different aspects and angles. Some people are at some point multiple people. Sometimes they're pretending to be multiple people. Sometimes they accidentally bond with multiple people and end up with lots of people in their head. So there is lots of personality shifting and interpersonal growth that's happening at the same time as personal growth, which I thought was really fascinating. And a lot of that, again, is represented through the bone ghosts. So I want to talk a little bit more about them. And so let's go a little more in depth what they are exactly.
Okay, so the bone ghosts are, as I said, they're artificial. There is a tree in Charm's bone orchard, for which the book is named, that grows human bones. Different ones, but its fruit are all human bones. And Charm and the lady collect the bones as they become ripe, if you will, as they mature and before they fall and are ruined. And when they're enough, the lady assembles them into a skeleton in a vat full of what is called empathy fluid. And when an entire person has grown over those bones, muscles and organs form and skin, then the lady can eject, if you will, one of the personalities in her head. In this portion of the book, everybody is out except Charm. Charm is the one who deals with emperors and mind locks. And as the mind lock is still in the original skull, commanding her loyalty and her obedience, Charm would be very, very difficult to remove. So the bone ghosts are dissociated personalities, basically. But they are very, very complete people, particularly as they have experiences in the world, as memory is part of what helps you form a personality, in theory. Yeah, your experiences help make you who you are eventually, and that is not any different with the bone ghosts. Their experiences are very much unique to themselves as individuals, which obviously can greatly complicate life.
Right. And the only bone ghosts that there are Charm / the lady's bone ghosts. It's a very unique ability to her that she can make these constructs that are living beings. Yeah. Which then takes us into the other magic. Well, did you want to say more about that?
I was just going to say that Borngard at large does not quite realize in the beginning how unique the ability actually is.
Because she's from a foreign country.
She is from a foreign country. Yes, she is a captive of war.
Yes. Which leads us into more of the magic that goes on. So the mind lock has to do with the psychic ability that some of the populace develops. And these psychic abilities are varied, and they tend to make you go a little insane, unless you have one of these mind locks. Do you want to describe what that is exactly?
Yeah, so psychics in this world, psychic abilities deal with everything from mind reading to telekinesis to pyrotechnics pyrotechnics. The mind lock basically keeps a psychic's talent from gradually building up brain damage, more or less. Without them, psychics develop their powers in their adolescence. And then by the time they're in their mid-20s or mid-30s, most of them have either died or they've quite certainly lost their minds. The dilemma there is that if someone is pyrotechnic and they die suddenly of their power, it's very awkward to have someone explode in the middle of a city block. It's not good. And, eventually an empath might lose track of what they're feeling, or they might lose all feeling, or a telepath might not be able to keep track of what thoughts are their own and what thoughts are other people's. So eventually your psychic powers are going to do you no good. They're going to kill you or make you crazy. One of those two things. And a mind lock prevents that damage from happening. It helps reduce the power to a controllable level. Even if you're very, very powerful, you still retain the power. It's just not running you. You're running it.
Theoretically, or the Emperor is running it.
Or the Emperor is running it, because he can give you a command, and that's the other shoe, right? The other shoe is that the Emperor can set a command in a mind lock, and you have to obey him. Your choice is to attempt to disobey would cause you grievous pain, like actual pain center in your brain, nerve pain.
This is used to great effect in the plot, but I won't say where. But
it is not something that I wanted to lightly pass by.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of a terrible devil's bargain, if you will, that Born Guard has made. They basically enslave their own citizens after fashion. To serve in the Imperial Police Force. If you're a psychic, you don't have other options other than die. So they are impressed into the Imperial Police Force. They have a mind lock implanted. They get to live the full extent of their lives, however that long that can be. But it's a relatively natural span, and they serve the Empire. That's their trade-off, or their parents' trade-off, depending on how young they are at the time.
Right.
Obviously.
And their lives are no longer their own, to the point where they have to wear helmets that don't show their face. They're faceless, they're nameless, and the only person who really ever gets to see them, although she technically isn't supposed to know their names, is Pain, who I adore.
Yeah,
poor Pain does not deserve any of her pain.
No, Pain's yeah.
Someone she's just the one really sincerely kind human being in this whole thing, and she's one of the bone ghosts. And she goes through some things, and at least maybe it turns out okay in the end. I'm not gonna spoil it.
No promise. No promises for any of them, frankly. Pain, her particular province, they're all named for good reasons. And her particular province is that she can feel the pain of someone else. And if she feels your pain, you don't feel your pain. Which, if you are in chronic pain, is quite a wonderful thing. That's her job. She is the person who takes away other people's pain. She carries it for them. That's what she does. That has always been her role. So she is, in fact, very sympathetic. And she'd rather you didn't hurt, because if you don't hurt, she won't hurt. And that would be nice all around.
Poor thing.
So yes. She's also one of the characters, she's the only bone ghost who willingly leaves Orchard House on a regular basis. She's more durable, let us say, than some of her cohort. So she goes into the city and runs errands for Orchard House.
Poor thing. And she is the one person at Orchard House who sees the fire drinkers, the Imperial, and they have a very interesting, special relationship, because she attends to them all, but she doesn't like attend to them all.
Right. So
if we're being delicate.
The fire drinkers, let us say, are not allowed to risk reproduction.
Ergo, no more exploding brains on the streets than you need. Right?
They're trying to sort of, in theory, breed it out of the populace. It's not going smashingly so far. But so she is the only person who gets to see them without their uniforms, and who knows them all relatively individually. Other than they live in a barracks, so one would assume they see each other. But she is
very interconnected, but
right. And because their Captain Orem, is a very, very powerful telepath, he tends to keep them all mentally linked together, so that what one of them knows, all of them know. Which is both wonderful and awkward, depending on how you'd like to look at that.
Can be terrible. Yeah. You just have a lot of characters who are very sure of themselves when they maybe don't have a right to be, which I appreciate. There's certain characters that are very, I won't say who, but someone thinks he's a nice guy, and he is not a nice guy. And I was appreciative that one of the characters at some point gets to tell him he's not a nice guy. Because reading, you want him to be a nice guy, but he is not. And I thought that was a really interesting way to handle a character that is a foil for the main character often, because you don't get to see that. Normally you want two characters that have a bond and a past to like each other and to be good to each other. And I really appreciate that you had characters who were like, no, you treated me badly. I will not.
Well, I think everybody wants to look at themselves as if they're a nice person. Very few people get up in the morning and wring their hands together and say, well, sure, I think I'll be the villain today. Everybody's got a reason or an excuse or an I had to, or I was having a bad day or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a matter of
get away with it.
Can you get away with it? Phelan doesn't think he's a bad guy. He just likes 13-year-olds.
Yeah, no, he is a bad guy.
This makes you a bad person, generally speaking.
You a bad guy.
That is not one of the more socially acceptable traits that we tend to associate in society. And but he doesn't think he's terrible. He is. He just doesn't think he is.
That's not all the princes. They're bad people. She said, there's no real beating around the bush. All the princes are bad people. Some are worse than others, but they're bad. They're very bad. But I appreciated how flawed all the characters were. They were very flawed in three-dimensional ways, and very different ways, all of them. There were very distinct flaws for everybody that felt very vibrant and real and added a lot to the dynamics of the interpersonal relationships.
Well, even Charm is obviously imperfect. She's, she has her little moment there in the kitchen of just being so jealous she can hardly stand it about a guy that was not great to her in a lot of ways, in most ways. He literally overran her country, but, she'd known him a very long time. And when there's only the one constant, and she's the only one he could trust because she has a thing in her head that makes her absolutely trustworthy. And emperors don't get very many people who are absolutely trustworthy.
Very true.
It's a sort of a sad statement on everybody.
Shall we look at the audience questions? See what we got
Sure.
here. All right.
Inchill? Sorry, I'm seeing a sidebar question that's not in the
sure.
questions.
Would you like to answer? Feel free.
Inchill is the country that Charm is from. Yes, spell check. Yes, so Charm is from the country of Inchill. Her country was invaded and overrun by Borin, and she was taken hostage as a prisoner of war because she was from basically the chancellor's family. So she was a very revered daughter of her country when she was abducted by the Imperial Armed Forces. Yes, she was definitely, in spite of her current trend towards tacky bust lines and Crayola-colored hair, she was, in fact, the child of the most noble family. As the lady would be more than happy to give up the tacky bust line and the highly colored Crayola hair.
All right, let's see what else we got here for questions. All right, the upvoted question is, a member of my household would like to know, are you planning on writing a middle grade book? Are you going to dive from dark gothic into more palpable for children?
Not at this moment. I'm not going to say never, but the one that I'm working on now is actually still, I wouldn't read it to my 9-year-old. Let me put it like that. But on the other hand, I did bad things in this book to a 13-year-old. So, I mean, part of it is always going to be what your kid can take, right? I mean,
sure.
Some people's kids have nightmares watching Walt Disney, and some kids are watching, horror movies by 10. There's no knowing. But at this time, I don't have any plans for a middle grade book. No. I may write one someday and somebody will go, you know what, this is a middle grade book. And I will be like, really?
No, that one, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, wow.
It's always an experience when your adult book is like, oh, this is why. And you're like, no. Thanks, but no. Let's see what else we have. Is there a character that you see the most of yourself in?
Oh.
Which is hard given the depth of the plot.
That's a rough field. I'd say I can see parts of myself in several characters, but none of them are exclusively me. I think that everybody presents facets of themselves. I know, you're a much different person at work than you are generally with your toddler. Or, one sort of hopes. And to your parents, you will always be whatever age they fixed you in their mind. My mother always thought I was 13. It's sort of charming. I really freaked her out that I was a grown-up. But I think in that aspect, I can see some of charm in me, in that, again, everybody's got sort of aspects of themselves. Certainly, I would like to think there's a little pride in there somewhere. But and I think that I mean, there's things about all the characters that I love. I love the bad ones for how terrible they are, to be fair.
Sure.
I envy Nether's savoir-faire. I adore Philip Anders and his eternally good-naturedness. Bless his heart. He's so sweet. He's nice.
Which is a rarity in this world.
He's really sweet. He's a very rare man. He's a very nice man. I quite like Count Sebro and Lord Hastings. They're both who they are. They're political animals. which just goes to prove that rewrites are magic, because I'm not generally a very political animal. But I can write one if you give me long enough to think about it. So I guess who I am among my characters is a little spread out, which is not a very satisfactory answer, and I do apologize, but that is the answer.
It's a very author answer is what it is. It's like, you're on all the pages, really. That's how it works, right?
Yeah, well, it's hard to help.
Let's see. Oh, we got some in the sidebar and we got some in the question.
Yeah, let's do the ask a question ones, and then maybe we can come back to the sidebar one.
Okay.
Or maybe it could be reposted to the site, to the ask a question. But it is, I mean, I'm not looking at the ask a questions because otherwise I'll just be reading, not answering questions.
What inspired the magical system?
Oh, a friend of mine that I was in a role-playing game with drew a picture of a tree with bones as fruit. And I said, that's really cool, Vryn. Really, really cool. Can I use that someday in a story? And he went, sure. Like, a very puzzled shrug, sure. And I didn't write it right away. It took a long time for it to sort of all come together from various different places. But I would have to say that seeing that picture was sort of the genesis of the idea that, oh, you know, what if you could do that? What would that mean? And, oh, that would be a good way to have dissociated identities outside your own body. And what would they do? Like, what does that other more competent person maybe do when they're not with you? You know, what does the person who
are you when you're not you? Yeah.
Yeah, who are you when you're not you? Exactly. It's a little strange. And I did want to look at that in a way that was not joking, because people do dissociate from trauma, and I didn't want to look away from that or make light of the fact that this is a condition that real people have, which is also why it's highly fictionalized. Just highly fictionalized. This isn't how it works.
That's not how it works. But that's okay, because it's magic.
It's magic, yeah. And the psychics are not, they're magic powers, but they're all sort of mental magic powers. So they can't cast a spell, but they could light all the candles in a room if that's their talent. And talents are highly individualized. They're just as individualized as every human being is. So there's not like a class, you know, of you can light all the candles, but maybe like you can also do some other minor function. Like there's some overlaps, there's some gray areas. So
oh, this feeds right into what we're talking about. When you wrote about the trauma that created different personalities, how much was based on what you needed the character to do for the plot, and how much was based on the story of the actual split personalities? Also, would this be... Is her magic... Oh, and her magic is still pretty unique to her, as you said, that each person's talents are very... It's not just because... It's not something that would be common back in her homeland, either.
No, her talent was never common ever.
Right.
So the different characters, different bone ghosts, the personalities, I started out with a random list of sort of traits that I thought sounded like, honestly, vaguely cool names. But then as I realized what the character's actual history was, like I started to sort of dial in what had she actually been through, what was the actual story of what happened in Inshil. I could look at what things would make a person dissociate. Like if you could just turn the switch on your own and step out and let someone else have to deal with this situation, where are the places where your brain would rather just be dead. What is so traumatic that you cannot cope with it anymore, that you would just go gibbering off into the woods, a raving loon, or lose your mind entirely. So obviously there's quite a few bone ghosts, so there's more than one deeply, deeply traumatic thing that happens to her, and as the story goes on, those have to be dealt with in one way or another, whatever it is, whether it's pain's past or pride's past or justice's past. They all have a piece of the past, basically.
And those things are unveiled really, trying to think of the word, sensitively is not the word I'm looking for, but like it's not so graphic as to like it's difficult to deal with, but it's not like you're traumatizing your reader as you're reading it.
Yeah,
you did a really good job of being like,
either.
This horrible thing happened and I'm making you understand it, but I'm not putting you in that moment in a lot of those things.
Yeah. This is not a gory book. A lot of this past is pretty gory, but it's not, as you say, it's off-screen trauma. It's already over. It's already happened. And there's some reasonably graphic descriptions in the book. None of them sex, weirdly. Takes place in a brothel. I can emphasize no actual no physical sex takes place in this book. Not on screen anyway. Plenty of it probably going on off screen, but we could say that about the whole world. So but yeah, so the past is very traumatic, but no, I don't go into it because I didn't want it to be sort of torture theater. That wasn't the goal. That was not the goal.
Absolutely understand. And you did a good job of it not being that.
Thank you.
It's very well handled. What's another question we can go to? Let's see. What is your favorite bit of writing advice you've ever received?
Ooh. If you're really stuck and you think that you have writer's block, which you very well may have, back up 2 chapters and make them do something else.
Oh.
I wish I could remember who gave me that advice because I would completely credit them right now, but I really can't remember who said that.
That's a really good trick. I don't think I've ever heard that one before.
I thought it was a good trick. And it really, it's like, don't stay where you are and grind at it. Like, try going back and picking, okay, so if I was going to do something else from the end of 2 chapters back, where would I go? What would I do with it? What would they do that was different? Maybe there's something they could do that's smarter. Maybe there's something they could reasonably do that's dumber. Might as well try it. It's not,
just a change of pace for your brain to get your
and even if
flowing again,
and even if you don't stick with that change, sometimes it kind of shakes you loose to go back and go, okay, now I see what to do over here.
Right. Which actually answers another question, which was, what do you do about writer's block? That's what you do.
Good. That's what I tend to do.
That's it. Let's see. Oh, for both of us, if someone wanted to get to know us better, what book would you recommend they read? Like any book at all?
That's a lot. Okay. Ooh. Okay, on the hot seat now, Marina. What book?
A book I haven't written? Because I feel like reading my books.
Yes.
One that I haven't written.
You have not written.
Oh, goodness. I feel like, so first it was the movie Contact, but I also read the book Contact and later in life. And I feel like that in a lot of ways was formidable in the way that I approach science fiction when I write science fiction and the way I think about other worlds and other places. And also is very like sense of wondery for me. So Contact would definitely be it for sci-fi. I'll just say that one because that was the first one that came to my brain. So
that works. Oh God, that makes me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so funny when she's on the other part. I'm going to pick the Count of Monte Cristo. It's about a vast injustice. It's torturously detailed and twisty and long. It's my favorite book. It's literally, right? there.
Nice.
In fact, because I go back to it because it is also beautiful to read. Also, some of the descriptions in particular are beautifully, beautifully worded. And in case it didn't show here and there, I do love a well-turned line.
Yeah,
I really do. So yeah, I would, and nobody could call it a happy, fun up book, to be fair. It is about a vast injustice and revenge. Those are its big features. So yeah, I think I would have to pick The Count of Monte Cristo. So
let's see. We have one
there it is.
question.
Yep. And if you have the stamina, by the way, the unexpurgated, like a lot of them are trimmed versions because he was being paid by the line. So it does show. Just want to put that forward for people who might have a moment of, oh my God, this book is 850 pages long, woman. It is. It's really long. But
get you an abridged version.
The abridged versions are also great.
Let's see. Okay. Is the mind lock helping keep Charm alive as well as control her?
Yes. Yes. She would she would just like every other psychic have lost her mind if she hadn't had a mind lock. So it is also stabilizing her brain, keeping her from having even worse breaks than she's already had.
I will say, while I was reading, because I'm obviously working on the Helm of Midnight and stuff, which is over here. I should have grabbed a copy to bring it closer, but you and I have very similar like themes about bodily autonomy and the way that, like, I was like, okay, so what's really great is that if you like the Helm of Midnight, you will love the Bone Orchard and vice versa, because they are very complementary types of books with dark themes in strange body-based magic worlds.
Yeah, and they both have who's in charge in your head when you're not problems to some extent. Yep. Yeah, the bodily autonomy questions, and what do you feel if it's not your feeling?
Right.
Which is so the book of Marina's that we're discussing specifically is The Helm of Midnight, and it's fabulous.
No, thank you. I wasn't actually fishing for compliments.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome because in her book, instead of ejecting the emotions, right, that go with certain memories, the magic is based on, could I have a teaspoonful of courage, please?
You're like, can I wear this jewel and it will give me...
And I have, everybody's been in a situation where you're like, I would just like a little more courage. Right now, I could stand to not be upset. That would be great.
That would be awesome.
I would be so much more functional right now if I wasn't just angry. And I think in that way, like, we do both go at that same theme in just slightly different angles, which was why I was also like, I read your book, I was like, wait a minute. Ooh.
They're extremely complimentary, like definitely like exact same audience type draws. Yep, I think.
Yeah, they really are.
Of course, murder mysteries in both of them.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
Yes. Murder mysteries in both. I love a good murder.
Me too.
Can't help it. A clever murder is even better.
Indeed. See, we have another question. Are there any scenes or bits of writing that you loved but didn't quite make it into the final version of the novel?
Yes, there is. And I can't talk about it because it's a spoiler.
Oh no. Bummer.
But I wrote a piece that would properly be a prologue piece, but I never put it in because it was just too big a spoiler.
Was it of Charm's time back in... No.
No. It's about...
Can we get a setting? Can we get a...
I'm sorry. It was about Major Nether's past.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. I decided I needed to know more about Nostetter so that I could sort out in my head what their what the past is around that character. Again, it was kind of a case of I really had to sit down and think out. I tried to make it that I tried to think of what people's pasts and what they would do. You know, I tried not to skimp on the cook, right? Or, you know, the parlor maid has a history too. They all have histories because some more detailed than others, to be fair. But Nothetter's was one in particular that I felt I needed to do. So that is a piece that I did write that didn't make it into the book. Maybe someday when the book has been out for a little while longer, I will find a place to publish that.
Could be
just
a nice
because
treat.
I had a great deal of fun with it. Well, Nostetter is a soldier. He's killed a lot of people, to be fair.
Oh, yes.
If you love a good murder, like... Do you have another question down there? Or
says, I like the use of pigeons as a visual. Was that done on purpose? Was there an overabundance of pigeons? I thought there were some pigeons.
Pigeons. There was a swallow. I'm trying to think of, I'm sorry, I'm apparently drawing a tremendous blank. Somebody remind me of the pigeon because I'm missing it. There's swallows and there are some songbirds in a cage. Yeah,
fluttering down halls was the other. There were pigeons fluttering down halls.
Pigeons fluttering down the hall.
It's okay if you don't remember. I don't remember half the stuff I write either.
I'm really sorry I wrote it. You'd think I'd remember it, but to be fair. When the emperor died. Fluttering down the hall like a pigeon. Yes. When the emperor dies. Yes. When she's just panicking her way down the hall. I was looking for an image that was when you run in a bustle dress that has an overskirt, if you're really trucking, the top layer of the skirt kind of does this as you run. Unfortunately, I know this. So, but yes, that sort of explosion of just feathers and flutter and motion was, thank you. That's what it was. Thank you very much for helping remind me. I do appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoyed that one too, actually. Also because Charm is sort of pigeony. She's little and round and sort of shaped. She's not sort of tall and elegant. She's not. She's not. She's got a lot of breast meat, has Charm.
She's very well endowed.
Very well endowed. Otherwise, people might take her seriously. It's probably a good idea.
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. So I have a couple questions for you on kind of as we sort of wrap up here. The first is what's next for you both?
Sarah, go first.
I can't talk about it right now. Oh. It's not entirely settled. It is sort of settled, but I'm just kind of, there's things about it I'm not happy with yet. But it's instead of being based in sort of the mid to late 19th century as its inspiration, in case the bustles and the Frankenstein vat didn't, weren't an obvious clue about its time frame. The newer one is based more in the sort of the line between the right at the very beginning of what historians call the early modern period. So it's roughly 16th-ish century, mostly-ish, but it certainly will have more of that structure about the society and the governmental power and how armies work, and there's going to be more killings because I just can't seem to. It's a good thing I can kill people on the page, apparently. What can I say? I love a good murder mystery, and I love plotting a good murder, and so there's murder, and there's more politics because I love doing that stuff. So, Marina, what are you going to do? Tell us about.
So the Cage of Dark Hours is the sequel to The Helm of Midnight, and that comes out next year. Sometime mid next month, the paperback for Helm of Midnight comes out, so that is exciting. And I'm working on book 3 in the 5 Penalties series, which I don't know if we've released the title yet or not, so I guess I won't say it. But the Cage of Dark Hours is the next thing coming out. So,
is it a 3-book series or a 5-book series? Is there one for every penalty?
It's a 3-book trilogy right now.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Potential but the trilogy is set. There will be a trilogy for Positive, and it is one complete arc. So
cool.
All right. And last, where can we find you both in the interwebs?
In the interwebs.
Or in the not interwebs, now that things are opening up again.
I am going to be at NorwestCon in Seattle next month. I will have a reading there and a signing. So I would love it if people came and saw me there. I also, you can find me at saraamuller.com. The middle initial is there purely for Googleability because it turns out there's about 9 million Sara Mullers in the world, which got really awkward when I tried to Google myself. So, yeah, at Twitter, I'm Sara A. Muller. At Twitter, at Instagram, I have underscores between the names and the middle initial. But yeah, my name.
My name as well. You can find me at lostetter.com because there's only like 300 Lostetters in the world, and all of them are related to my husband. So luckily, my name is very easily Googleable. That was just the fates gave that one to me. And at Marina Lostetter on Twitter. I think it might be at Marina J Lostetter on Instagram. And so far, I'm still holed up in my house, so no definitive appearances forthcoming just yet.
Understandable. Yeah, that is one I don't have a problem. My first name may be Jennifer, but my last name is Marchesotto, and there's like 5 of us. It's a very low number. And 3 of them are like me and my daughters. So, on that note, thank you both so much for joining us. I know that so many of the people watching were so excited by the books and really seem to connect with the characters and kind of what you were trying to communicate, and are really engaged with everything. So very excited to see what comes next. Everybody, if you haven't gotten it yet, please hit that button below. The best way to support our authors is to go buy their books, and then you get a free book plate signed by Sara, which is amazing. And you can find Marina's book as well as all of your other genre needs at Mysterious Galaxy. I hope everybody has a lovely night. Thank you again to both of you for joining us. This was a lovely conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Of course. We love it. This is, like I said, it's a new staff pick at the store, and so people are excited, and everybody should read it. All right. And on that note, I will say goodnight, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their week and a lovely weekend as well.
Thank you.
Night. Bye.